A lot of moving pieces here. Thankfully, our NBC News team is covering every angle of this story. Sahil Kapur is on Capitol Hill. Garrett Haake is with me on set. He's, of course, covering the Trump transition with a little bit of the Hill sprinkled in. David Ingram, who covers the world of Elon Musk. And also with us is NBC News chief political analyst Chuck Todd. Sahil, we'll start with you at home base on the Hill. What do we know about this new agreement? It's really coming together in real time here.
Yeah, that's right, Ali. This is all breaking in just the last few minutes. A couple of Republican members coming out of Speaker Johnson's office saying that they have a deal, they have an agreement. What's unclear right now, or rather, what we don't expect is that Democrats have signed off on the agreement before it was struck. This seems like an internal agreement among Republicans, but one that they appear to expect will have enough votes to pass. There is a belief, a Republican congresswoman saying that as early as 6 p.m. the House might vote on this deal. We have not seen text yet. Our expectation is that it will include a short-term funding bill, that it will include disaster relief. Those are the two low-hanging fruit items that everyone seems to agree on. Beyond that, I think we're still working to confirm the details. But suffice it to say, Republicans have been in a scramble for the last 24 hours since President-elect Trump, with assistance from billionaire Elon Musk, scuttled the original deal that Speaker Johnson signed off on. They need to get something done by tomorrow at midnight, or the government shuts down. Time will tell if this is going to be the bill that prevents it, Ali.
Yeah, they are certainly scrambling at this point, Sahil. And there are members, even though we're not exactly sure what the details are of this plan yet, there are members who have already come out and said, all right, this is not what I'm going to get on board for. Chip Roy is one of those that I'm talking about. But Chip Roy is also an example of someone that the president-elect threatened primary challenges against, including any other Republican who opposes him or this plan. So how is that going to play with Freedom Caucus members who, frankly, have seen these kinds of threats before and aren't necessarily deterred?
It's a very good reminder, Ali, that Speaker Johnson is almost certainly going to need Democratic votes for this. There are too many Republicans in this tiny majority that do not want to vote on short-term government funding bills. They don't believe in continuing the status quo when it comes to the current spending levels. And with the margins where they are, Speaker Johnson's certainly going to need Democratic votes. So that's the big open question. Does the leader, Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader, end up supporting this? Does a sufficient number of Democrats come on board? That answer is still unclear. And then, of course, it has to pass the Democratic-controlled Senate. Now, Chip Roy is the tip of the spear when it comes to opposing the status quo on budgets and government funding. It's not really clear how many people will be with him, but if there is a debt limit extension in this bill, which, again, we don't know the answer to that, there might be, given how emphatically Donald Trump has been demanding it, then that could really complicate things, because you and I have been hearing on the Hill today, a lot of Democrats are not interested in engaging with that Trump demand at this time, given that he is planning to do a major tax cut, which they say will largely go to the wealthy in the next few months.
Sahil, I'm going to ask you to hang out there at our favorite position of Will Rogers in the halls. Please keep us posted if anyone walks by. But I want to turn to Garrett quickly, because as we've been talking and wondering, well, where's the president-elect on this? He's in a good way about it, apparently.
He's answered that question on Truth Social just while we've been sitting at this table posting success and outlining the terms of the deal, which, of course, he has given a name to.
I was going to say, he's branded it.
He's called it the American Relief Act of 2024, keeps the government open, funds farmers, and he says what he calls a vital piece to this, suspending the debt ceiling to January 30th, 2027, which is, of course, after the midterms. The Trump team has long known that they've got a pretty short window to get anything done. This pushes a debt ceiling fight after that window is presumably closed. So it doesn't get rid of it entirely, which is what he told me this morning that he wanted. But for all intents and purposes, it gets rid of its impact on his legislative agenda.
It gets rid of the impact on his legislative agenda in the near term. But I can't help but wonder if, Chuck, this hasn't just utterly crippled the speaker before he's even begun enacting the Trump agenda.
Well, it is. And part of the problem is that this is two Republican parties, right? You've Donald Trump has moved this in a different direction, but there's still a Republican Party that was there pre-Trump. And many of the members there really do believe government's too big and really would like to see government spend less. Then you have others who believe, no, government should spend money, but just on our constituents, you know, just for our supporters. So that's the real issue here. I think there is fundamental, principled, almost ideological splits all inside this one caucus, inside the Republican Party in the House. And they can't do this. Wait till they try to do his bigger agenda next year with a smaller House majority. Yeah. Likely a much, 2 seats shorter, right? So everybody's going to have to either vote together or he's going to have to find himself 10 to 15 Democrats. And he might do that. Like that, I'm not ruling that out. But it all will depend on what direction does he want to move the party. And I think you've got guys like Chip Roy who are like, no, I'm a small government guy. I want to shrink government. I think government does too much. I actually think Elon Musk thinks this too.
Yeah,
but Donald Trump doesn't have any. He just wants to keep everybody happy, and he realizes spending money keeps people happy.
I think you guys are so right to bring up Elon Musk because he's a really important piece of this picture. I want to bring in David to ask how important piece of this picture you think Elon Musk was. I've been sort of going back and forth. Is he the chicken or the egg in this scenario? Did he set off this stampede on the Hill and then Trump came in and sort of cemented it? Or was it Elon doing Trump's bidding here? I mean, you know Musk world. What's your sense?
Great question. So he certainly was not the first person to come out against the CR yesterday, but he came out against it so forcefully and so repeatedly. He posted on his social media platform X more than 100 times on Wednesday alone, hammering members, telling them to vote against this CR, asking his followers, he's got, remember, more than 200 million followers on his own social network, asking them to call members of Congress to oppose this. I think the stakes, at least for Musk here, are partly, about a month ago, he was appointed to co-lead this Government Efficiency Commission. They're calling it DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. Even the name is a joke. And some people, mainly Democrats, have questioned whether this is really just a pretend agency to keep Musk busy. So Musk has an incentive here to show that he really does have some influence within the party. I think we're seeing Musk so far, at least, at what is his apex of power in the Republican Party. He campaigned for Trump. He gave nearly $250 million to his own super PAC and others to fund efforts to support Trump, to boost Trump. Now he is wanting to stay in the picture. He is also having fun. He has said before he doesn't enjoy working for other people. He wants to be his own boss. That's why he started SpaceX. That's why he's the CEO of Tesla. And I think he sees this as an opportunity to prove himself right about some of these questions and make sure that he can have a say.
Prove himself right, Garrett, or fly too close to the sun? Because, I mean, we know that the way that you upset Trump is by seeming to get out in front of him. And Democrats know that, too, because they've been branding this as, oh, President Musk.
Yeah, it reminds me of the early days of 2017 when there were all the magazine covers about Steve Bannon being the man behind the curtain controlling Trump. That did not work out well for Steve Bannon. But Steve Bannon didn't have tens of billions of dollars he could put behind Trump's efforts. And I think Musk is, whether intentionally or not, managing this a little bit better than Bannon did. He's also much harder to get rid of and a more dangerous enemy if Trump decides to make him one.
He does, but he needs a lesson in basic democracy, which is you don't have the votes. I mean, you're sitting here with this very narrow majority. They have no choice but to work with Democrats. If you don't want to work with Democrats, go win more elections.
But I think this is...
They lost a bunch, they lost a bunch of elections they should have won.
But this actually caught my attention. I want the control room to pull up the full screen of what Andy Barr told the Associated Press. He said, my phone was ringing off the hook. The people who elected us are listening to Elon Musk. Is that true?
It is true if you choose to believe it's true. It's one of those things like he has power because they've decided he has power over their constituents. The fact of the matter is, if you look at the actual election results, it isn't true. Right? You have very much a split decision below the presidential ballot, right? You have a very, very narrow slice. So in many ways, it's like, look, if there were more votes to shrink government, there'd be a different Congress, but it doesn't exist. And they're trying to pound a square peg into a round hole.
But I think there are two parts to this. The most motivated parts of the Republican base, the people who decide primary elections, are listening to Elon Musk. And that's who somebody like Andy Barr is going to be worried about. Also, if you're Musk, this is the whole point, right? You've made your whole life as being the guy who said, this system sucks. I'm not going to work in it. I'm going to break it. But this is a much harder system to break.
It's funny. It's a reminder, though. All these people come in from the outside and think think it's all easy. Sure. Then you go in on the inside. I mean, this is going to be the welcome to the NFL moment. I think it already is for Musk. It's going to be a welcome to the NFL moment from people like Dr. Oz, who's got to go in there and realize what he's dealing with at CMS, or a Bobby Kennedy Jr., or a Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon. Is they made all these proclamations, and then they're going to run into reality. Well, and it's, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Yeah. The old Mike Tyson axiom. And that's essentially, they're getting punched in the face right now. And it's just politically stupid.
Yeah.
Like, this was not on their watch, and he said, no. Let me put it on my watch. Let me own this dysfunction. It's politically, he's been having a honeymoon. This is the best moment Trump's had politically, and he said, no, it's going too smoothly. Let me mess it up a little bit.
You know what strikes me about this is the chaos has always been the point. And I guess my question to you, David, is chaos something that would scare Elon Musk off of something like this? Because for some people in Washington, the chaos is too much, and that's where they start to back off. For a lot of these Republicans, it's been a practice the last 2 years. The chaos is the point. Does that ring true for someone like Musk, too?
You know, he's never been in a situation where he doesn't have control and this kind of chaos reigns. So if we get into a government shutdown and get in for several days or a week or more, and certain government agencies start shutting down, I think he's going to be tested in his confidence. But I think part of his power, part of what he's relying on for his influence, is he has this cultural influence and economic influence. So people think of Elon Musk as the guy who landed a rocket on two arms at this, at his starbase. They think of him as the guy who made electric cars popular for really the first time. And that is going to have a lasting influence, certainly within the tech industry. People are not abandoning him within the tech industry, despite some of his really extremist views. And I think for the average person, they see that as making him a different kind of figure, somebody who maybe is not, maybe a little more immune to the give and take of Washington. And it's not clear to me, what the real downside to him would be for a government shutdown if he would really get the blame. Would regular people blame him? My guess is that's really uncertain.
Yeah, well, it's easy when you're not subjected to voters ultimately deciding how well they think you did or not. Sahil, I want to bookend with you, end as we started. Anything new from the halls of Congress? And when we're looking at this deal, what's the number of Republican votes that Johnson is able to lose on this at this point?
On the first part, Ali, I got a response from another source in just the last few minutes saying that Democrats were not part of this deal. That's the most emphatic comment. This is from a Democratic leadership aide with knowledge of what's being floated out here. Clearly, this is not something that leadership has signed off on, and I think the signal here is that they are keeping their options open in terms of whether they end up endorsing it. If they don't end up endorsing it, then I think Speaker Johnson is likely going to have some very serious problems, especially with Donald Trump now saying the debt limit will be part of this, confirming what we'd been hearing some early rumbles of at this time. So if they do hold that vote at 6, it's very much an open question as to whether it has enough support to pass.
We love the way that votes just end up on the House floor and we have no idea whether or not they are going to pass. I cannot stress for our audience enough how that is not the way that this is supposed to work. But Sahil, Garrett, Chuck, and David, thank you all for a rollicking start to this show.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.